As a Gen Z, you have many moments of solitude, maybe self-doubt and depression, in which you escape to a fantasy to relieve yourself of the trauma. Unlike previous generations who didn't have digital devices with which they could escape reality, Gen Z are pretty good at this. They can bury their head away from their problems and everything, offset them just for a few minutes or hours at night in which they can read or watch whatever shows they want or play video games, feel so blissful. But the problem is, when you log off the video game, when you stop watching the show, all those thoughts you'd put off before come racing back. And this is a horrible, daunting feeling. And at this point, what are you meant to do? You can't get rid of them. You can't escape no matter how far you run away from your problems. They just come back every time after you finish escaping in the fantasy world that you just burrowed yourself in. So now, what do? You have to disassociate yourself with the modes of escapism, these digital devices, these fantasy worlds, and tackle your problems in life head on. Now yes, it's scary. It's unknown territory. What will happen when you decide to face your problems? You will experience hardship. You will experience pain, but also alongside the pain there is growth. Without pain there is no gain. You know, that saying really holds some deep truths, as much as you don't want to believe it. And so as a Gen Z person, I've decided not to let myself escape into fantasy worlds when I have a problem. I must first tackle the problem. Yes, I can put off the digital distractions, the fantasy worlds aside for later, but right now I have to tackle the problem. And how do you do this? So how long has it been since you've actually thought about something deeply affecting you, some traumatic experience? How long has it been since you properly cried it out? And the answer actually awaits you on the other side of that pain. You're laying there feeling hopeless because you have these problems in your head. You really want to escape to a fantasy world, but you just can't do that yet because you have not dealt with your problems first. And what happens if those problems linger in your mind for too long because you keep escaping to a fantasy world? Well, they start to eat at you slowly, eat at your self-esteem, eat at your will to live even. These problems, they can take a while to go away, and you need to be able to deal with them effectively before it gets to that point. This is why you must be strong. This is why you cannot just slip out into that fantasy world, because you're only doing yourself harm. It's like self-torture, letting those intrusive thoughts, those traumatic experiences claw away at you every second, trying to take your will to live away. So, go back. Do not escape into the fantasy world. Have a think. Shut your eyes. Think about it. Maybe cry it out. It will take time. Trust me, I had one of these moments last week. I had to deal with it. You know, everything happens for a reason, and you don't have to blame yourself for what happened. That's what I realized. As long as you're always acting out of your best interest, whether it was a mistake or not, remember that you were just doing the best you could in that moment, because that's the way we act. We always strive for better. And so when something bad happens, we don't blame other people for our problems firstly. Then you don't blame yourself and you blame no one. There's a Chinese proverb which goes, "He who blames others is going nowhere. He who blames himself is halfway there. He who blames no one has made it." Overcome the experience. Just sit in silence, no distractions, completely in solitude, and you will eventually make it out, and you will relieve yourself of the traumatic experiences that are haunting you. And that is what happens when you don't let yourself escape into a fantasy world. Escapism, it's eating away at us. You need to tackle your problems head on, not run away from them. The further away you run from one problem, the closer you get to another. Always remember that. That applies to the roads, when you're driving a car, and that also applies to your headspace and emotion. So, give yourself some time in solitude. Think about your problems, overcome them. It may take hours, and you will feel at peace. And at that point, you can smile once again, knowing that you did your best. Thanks for listening, take care, and see you in the next video.